In a series where your main objective is to use some sort of sword to get from point A to point B, it's easy to see the importance of locking in on a certain one and maining it to the end. When I need to start a new run and don't feel like relearning pacing and spacing, what are my go-to selections in each of the Soulsborne games? What is the point of learning a new moveset when I have my true and tried method of conquering already? I'm gonna give you my main selections as well as a backup just for variety. If you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing, it truly means a lot. I'm just gonna go right down the list, starting with Demon Souls and then on to Dark Souls 3. Then Bloodborne and then Elden Ring. These aren't the quote-unquote best or strongest weapons, yeah they might be, but these are my choices for when I want my bread and butter. An easy setup that you can take to any game and onto New Game Plus. Guys, let me know what your go-to weapons are below, I would love to have some new ideas for future videos. Alright, first off, my go-to weapon in Demon Souls is simple yet so effective, and that's the Crescent Falchion. Now, I've only really done one deep dive into this game, so this is the only game I'm gonna give one entry, but honestly, you might not need another one considering how powerful this bad boy is. And with how early you can get it in a playthrough, it becomes instantly beneficial to the player. So while the Dex player focusing on intelligence is gonna see the maximum benefits of this sword, right off the bat, as long as you have the stats to wield it, the Falchion is the most bang for your buck. At least until you start leveling up, this weapon will be the ipso facto best starting weapon for any class. Up to a point. Now with a magic run through, this is absolutely the go-to. You don't even need to pack one spell, you can just dump a bunch into intelligence and still melee your way through this game no problem. It's that good. Its quick moveset is perfect for tight quarters. You also have this nice swipe followed up with a backstep. Also this, you gotta realize that some of the more difficult bosses are weak to magic, so another plus when considering a weapon to grab and stick with. Just look at what I'm able to do to Flame Lurker at level 36, it makes this battle a cakewalk. And I know in the long run with proper leveling and a proper infusion, with a magic buff you can do even more damage, but in terms of ease and practicality, picking the Crescent Falchion up first thing and putting all of your time and love into that is all you need. If you're in a pinch, if you're a vet, you like magic, you're a Dex Lord, you got a strength build and you just need something for Flame Lurker, Crescent Falchion will be your right-hand man for every occasion imaginable. Try it out once, I'm sure you're gonna fall in love with its quick moveset. Alright, next up on my list and my Dark Souls go-tos are the 3 Black Knight weapons that you can get early on. Well, I guess any of them, but my personal favorite definitely is the Halberd. But again, you start up Dark Souls and 10 minutes in, you're at your first chance to obtain one of these weapons. And 5 more minutes in each direction, you have 2 more chances. Mixed with the early and easy to obtain Twinkling Titanite, and these choices become an absolute force in the first half of the game. Getting to the giant blacksmith and spending a few souls will guarantee it maxed out at +5 before Ornstein and Smo. And I don't know about you, but Ornstein dying in 3 hits just seems right to me. One-handing it does uber damage. Two-handing it, forget about it.
It's also like if something is the greatest thing in the world, like Mingiro's peppers, forget about it, you know?
Don't even get me started on the riposte damage. It turns the chunkiest of Unga Bunga Bills into a naked parry god in seconds. Seriously, I don't have enough great things to say about the Black Knight weapons. They must be the strongest in the game by far, it just seems to be the objective best in terms of raw damage. But hey, sometimes you just aren't getting the items to drop, and not everybody has the time to reset until you get them. I got you boys, cause my second choice for DS1 is the Uchi Katana. This baby rips, I'm telling you. You're gonna hear this at least once more, but max out Dex and Intelligence, get you an Uchi and apply Crystal Magic Weapon to it and you might as well just be the Terminator. Dude, I'm serious, this combination is so deadly you will never think of Dark Souls bosses being hard again, and you'll be attempting that Soul level 1 run in no time. Not only does the mixture of its good base damage, great scaling, can be buffed and does bleed, it's a glass cannon's bread and butter. But for anybody looking for that PvE, PvP, boss killing, crowd controlling, all around weapon that's lightweight with good range and hits quick and hard, the Uchi is your only friend and don't let anybody tell you different.
Forget about it.
Alright, next up is Dark Souls 2, and my go-to weapon is the classic, the good old-fashioned Great Sword. The sword's so renowned and so revered, it'll have your enemies doing this. This buffable slab of steel does bone-crushing damage to any enemy in the game and is excellent at staggering. making it so you can plan accordingly. Get some space, swing, and repeat. One-handed and you can swipe groups of enemies. Two-handed down slice in tight spaces. But when all is said and done, the reason this weapon shines is its major damage combined with its ability to stun. Alright, I mean real quick, just check out these bloodstains. You can see the common denominator in all of them. No greatsword. No greatsword. No greatsword. No greatsword. No weapon at all. With how much damage this does bring to the table, you think it couldn't get any better. I now introduce you to the Pound Town. All the fun you think you're gonna have with just one great sword, now think of it with two. The best thing about DS2 is I can equip these two mammoth swords and run into a fight with confidence, knowing that even though I'm sloppy as all hell, I'm still able to put out enough damage to compensate for it. My favorite weapon in Dark Souls 2 and my go-to for any strength run. But if I'm not going in heavy-handed, my second choice is the rapier. You can purchase this right off the bat from the blacksmith in Majula, and I've always liked thrusting weapons. This just works for my playstyle, the dodging and poking, but the amount of damage I'm able to do while still being quick and agile is just baffling. I can't help but return to these two whenever I decide to either go strength or dex. For anyone looking to get into a Dark Souls 2 run, I'm telling you, get your hands on this and you will thank me later with how much fun you're having. Sword, great sword, whatever you want to play, these two selections will carry you to the place you want to be. No questions asked. Alright, Dark Souls 3 for me is very personal. This may just be the game I've put the most hours into, but I'll say this. Day 1, it was the Ultra Fume Greatsword. Bugs. But it getting nerfed, I haven't used it in some time. Now my go-to is the Exile Greatsword. Everything from how you obtain it to how you use it is gold. I get it by doing this.
And a nice spin into some open field.
Round 1, fight! Round 2, fight!
Works every time. But taking this greatsword into a boss battle is pretty much entering a stagger simulator, because that's what I'll be doing with it. I love how well the Exile performs against bosses, knocking a lot of them around, giving me an opportunity for another hit here and there, further boosting this weapon's efficiency. Don't get me wrong, you're gonna see how much I do love dancing with bosses, using more nimble weapons that require better timed shots, but trading quickness for sheer power is what I would call the good deal on my end. Sometimes I don't want to try to be perfect and land a few hits with how squishy I am. Sometimes I want to wear big armor, swing my weapon, and landing it causing a knockback, allowing me to follow up. I take the Exile Greatsword with me from start to finish on most playthroughs, right on through to the DLC, and I love it every time. Even with the slower speed that you get with Greatswords, that's greatly outweighed with its damage and counter options that you can play around with to get a stun during tense sections in battle. And you can buff this bad Larry. Did I say I love the Exile Greatsword? Because I love the Exile Greatsword. One weapon that I do have to mention though, and I'm grouping two into one. It's the Sellsword Twin Blades and the Gotthard Twin Blades. I'll only mention Gotthard real quick. Its rolling poke attack has to be one of the most punishing attacks in the entire game. Strong in PvE, but a PvP monster. And with the Sellsword Twin Blades, here's my setup. Again, high dex, high intelligence, crystal magic weapon. Set yourself up in front of any enemy and do what I call the Wombo Combo, the spin to win. This attack right here will one-shot mostly any enemy in the game and absolutely shred bosses. It's by far what I believe the glassiest cannon in all of Dark Souls 3. Dude, not including rings and buffs and whatnot, it eats people alive.
Like Kobayashi.
If you're a shield lover in the Souls game and want to branch out, I'm telling you, try the Twin Blades out, you will crush this game. Which then allows for more experimentation for better experiences. Start as the mercenary and you'll have these from the get-go. With any other class you pick, you can find both the Exile Greatsword and the Twin Blades fairly close to each other, giving you little time to decide, but either decision that you go with will be an excellent one, because I'm sure that you can't go wrong with either of these choices. Alright, now for Bloodborne. I mean, you can call me old school, call me boring, call me whatever you want, but I'm a creature of habit. My go-to weapon in Bloodborne is the Saw Cleaver. It's just there for me when I need it the most. This has to be the best early weapon hands down. I'll use this for the entire run, but as far as the first few levels, the bosses and the enemies that fill them, the Saw Cleaver is numero uno. First off, you get an extra like 10, 15, or 20% damage to beasts, which is like half of the game's enemies. And bosses. That alone puts this in S tier. The fast moveset just shreds enemies. I can't tell you how many times I get myself locked into an R1 frenzy until the boss is 100% past dead. R1, R1, L1 for the transition attack, and what you have is incredible to say the least. I've tried all the weapons in Bloodborne and I love them all, but time and time again I find myself just returning to the good old Saw Cleaver for its ease of use, not needing to find it with it being available from the start, and its bonus damage. Really, how can you compete with that? Maybe the Saw Spear, but again, call me old school and boring, but I just take what's given to me and run with it. When I do try other weapons in Bloodborne, I do like the Whirligig Saw, but what I really use is the Ludwig's Greatsword. The most versatile all-around sword in my opinion. You have quick slashes with its normal R1s, but when it's transformed, it's in its greatsword form, the ultimate crowd controller. So many times I've led countless foes to their death by cutting them down a hallway and poking them with my R2. It's extremely effective in sticky situations. It's probably the main reason I was able to beat Bloodborne my first time around. Some levels get tricky, and having a weapon that deals with both single and multiple enemies really well adds to my favoritism towards it. Having both Ludwig's sword and the Saw Cleaver as main and backup is the absolute way to go. Any enemy during the levels won't have a second thought as you're charging up from a safe distance, and having the option to pull the cleaver out when facing any beast to get that bonus damage in is a major reason to factor in when picking certain weapons for my playthrough, and why I land on these two so many times. Saw Cleaver, Ludwig's sword, both of them. Love them. Alright, last but certainly not least, I got Elden Ring. Now listen, right off the bat I'm gonna say this, that I would consider the Uchi a good go-to weapon, but considering it's been on this list already, I'm not gonna end the list with it. It's there, you can get it, use it, but nowadays when I boot up Elden Ring and I set out in the lands between, I have one go-to plan that sets me up to crush every time. One first is nabbing the Lord Sworn's Greatsword. It's right at the start of the game. It's a Claymore moveset, meaning that you can grab a Claymore and power stance these guys, making you a jumping R2 fiend, whose only purpose in life is to swing these two soul stealers from the clouds and raining down with a warrior's pleasure. Basically, you're a beast with this setup. But say that you want to transition, this is where I would do it. With Lord Sworn's Greatsword, I have no problem getting into Lendel early, like I'm talking level 45 early. Giving me the perfect chance to grab these spiky balls of fury, and these my friend, these pack a punch. No punch intended.
I don't want to hear any more of this stupidity.
Well, because I've been worried about if I was going to screw up like this.
Well, you did. And you're sweating. And
Take out the fact that it has a bleed effect on it, you can make these cold, which now gives you the chance of dealing 2 status effects. But its moveset is what's incredible. Its charged heavy takes almost no time to charge up, meaning I can deal uber posture damage in such a quick amount of time. So much faster than I can with much larger weapons, only because of how fast I can get off another hit. Elden Ring, more than any other game in the series, relies on charging heavies up and jumping attacks. These are the go-to when taking on these super aggressive bosses. Getting staggers off so easily with a weapon that has frost and bleed is destruction every time. I feel the Starfist more than any other weapon allows for tight and aggressive play, that when done correctly will allow for the quickest boss fights imaginable. This must be why fist weapons are always used in speedruns, but regardless, Starfists are an amazing weapon that I would consider my go-to weapon when playing Elden Ring, if I've had enough of the great swords. So these are just the weapons I consider my go-to weapons, the ones that I use the most and am the most familiar with and feel confident enough with them that I'll make it through any of my playthroughs. I encourage all of you to try these weapons out. Let me know if you have already and if any of these are your go-tos. If not, let me know what your go-to weapons are in these games. I would love to know. Please like and subscribe, it means a lot. Thank you for watching, everybody. Take care.